Welcome to the Pandemonium Witches podcast, where the ADHD has just a touch of autism, where the true crime is as scary as the hauntings and unsolved cases. But the hosts never stay on topic for long. I'm Kat.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Em.
And I'm Meg.
Keep your arms, legs, and other extremities in the vehicle at all times, and enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hello.
What'd you eat for lunch?
I've been trying not to puke for the last 5 minutes.
Oh no.
Sylvia, you didn't feed my name to the water gods, did you?
Absolutely not.
Good. I know Rachel wouldn't. She loves me too much.
Oh God, no, I'm so sorry. That's the worst.
I ate lunch. It's my normal comfort food, which is Mississippi pot roast. Rachel knows I can eat it in one sitting and feel fine. I'm halfway through it and my body just goes. You know that feeling I'm talking about? And so I'm like, okay, I take a break. I'm finished with my water, but take a sip of this. Wait a minute. Okay, my stomach's fine. Take a couple more bites. So I just took a handful of Tums. If I run out of the room, just keep going.
Okay.
Sylvia, are you in the spare bedroom?
I am.
The sun is coming right through the curtains.
Oh, you're fine. It gives this beautiful,
like an angelic halo.
Yeah, well, we know you're not angelic, but, I mean.
No, AJ's working from home today, so I can't use his office. The problem with the master bedroom is that it's a rather large room. Well, on the Huskies, but it's the master bedroom. While the ceiling is normal ceiling height, it's a very large room, and so I don't know how that works for acoustics.
Bad,
not very well.
No.
Yeah.
This room is small, right? The ceiling is slightly vaulted, but if I have the fan going, there's no reverb. So
the master is one of the bigger rooms in the house, so it's got a long hallway into the master bathroom, and there's no door to close off the hallway from the master. There's a door to the bathroom right at the end of the hallway, but there's no door into the hallway, so there's no way to make it smaller. Just an appropriate size master. It's just for acoustics purposes. I am in that spare bedroom, and it was this one or the dog room. So,
I mean,
here I sit on my comfortable bed.
And Oreo and Henry would not understand why they are still kenneled, but you are sitting on the floor in their room.
This is true. This is true.
Why have you forsaken me, mother?
Yeah.
We can see you, but we cannot reach you.
Right.
We've had a very productive afternoon. I went grocery shopping. I bought some Halloween things I didn't need to buy, but that's okay. And then we booked our travel for his best friend's wedding in October. So that's nice. And we figured out how much PTO he's going to need to burn before the end of the year, which is helpful for trying to plan his question mark batch party. Because in the Serbian Orthodox tradition, you don't get traditional bridal parties. There's no best man, there's no maid of honor. It's just you and the priest at the front of the church. So we're planning our own parties, basically. And he can only carry over a week of PTO, which is...
That stinks.
Yeah, it's not real helpful for trying to plan a joint party. Because we also have to get back to Texas and get our marriage license and do all that stuff beforehand.
And finalize everything. And
given the nightmare I had this morning. Yes.
Nightmare?
What?
There was no DJ. I had no beer burros. Someone had called and canceled the cake that I ordered and purchased us a traditional 3-tier wedding cake instead of the cake and the cupcakes.
That would have been his mother.
It was not clear in the dream who it was. I think the blame
Mom knows better.
Well, I think the blame was firmly on my
planner.
coordinator. Yes. And so yes, there's no DJ. The cake I wanted wasn't there. There was no beer burrows. There was no alcohol because somebody forgot to order and pick it up. And I spent the entire reception just in hysterics because nothing was the way I wanted it. And there was no catering because and granted, all of these fears are rooted in an actual issue, right? Like we haven't booked a DJ yet. We haven't booked the beer burrows yet. And then there was no catering. But that's because we haven't sat down and picked the menu yet. We need to do that this week too. But yeah, so we need to sit down and pick our menu because he sent us a list of a billion things. And I don't have a menu picked out yet. So I need to do that. It doesn't help. Mom's trying to be helpful, but she's sending emails about like Facebook reels about your timeline and what you should be doing now and
I know.
Mom, you're not helping the anxiety. I need you to stop it right now.
I mean,
and trying to be helpful, but you're not.
Rachel and I planned my wedding in a month.
Ish, month and a half, I think, tops.
So, I mean, everybody who's saying your timeline, fuck that.
Well, yeah, no, I know it's completely possible to plan this thing in a short amount of time. It's just that the next
Mom's not helping.
The next several months for us are very busy. He's traveling for work, and then we're traveling for our own stuff, and it's and so then all of a sudden it's November and it's the holidays, and it's and I just Mom's not helping. I love her, but she thinks she's being helpful by sending all these things, but she's not. And then she's like, how can I help? And I'm like, you can't unless you can magically create more days in the week for AJ and I to be off together so that we can sit down and do all these things.
Right.
It's really what it is, right? When my 2 days off don't coincide with his 2 days off, and then I'm on nights, we don't see each other, and it's there's just no way to make this work unless you can make more days in the week, Mom. So, anyway.
I feel your pain.
You're trying to be helpful, but you're just not being helpful.
Right.
So.
I love the emotional support dragon, Rachel. Josh sent that to me last night. He goes, look, you can have one in your book. And I was like...
It would go wrong so quickly.
It would go wrong so quickly. Knowing my characters. But they just write themselves, so I don't really have a choice in the matter.
Right.
Yeah.
You just put pen to paper, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They do the rest.
They do. They do all the heavy lifting. It's great.
But also terrifying at the same time.
Right, because I never know what they're going to do. This is a Pandemonium Witches podcast, case exclusive. The last time you were on here, you were telling us about a really horrible woman.
Yes.
And there's been an update.
Several updates.
Several, not
several updates.
Okay.
Not just one, several updates.
Okay.
So I talked about Lucy Letby last time, who is Britain's now, I guess, most notorious. They're calling her the most notorious child killer in England. And
which is a very big feat.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah. So in April, so since we've had our last conversation, so back in April, she went back to court seeking permission to appeal her conviction after her appeal attempt in August of last year was refused by a judge. And her team argued on 4 counts. 4 grounds of appeal against 3 senior judges in the I guess it's the Crown Court now. So they argued on the grounds that her convictions were unsafe, as the initial judge, had been mistaken in law when he refused 4 separate applications made by the defense. One of which evidence of the prosecutor's key witness, Dr. Evans, should have been struck out for being dogmatic and biased. that the medical evidence behind her convictions for an air embolism was quote unquote very weak and could not be relied upon. 3 was that the judge was wrong to direct the jury that they did not have to be sure of the precise acts that led to a baby's collapse or death. And 4, that the judge failed to properly investigate a complaint made about a juror in the final days of the trial when they were allegedly overheard saying that they had made up their minds from the start about her guilt. This complaint was eventually traced back to a cafe owner who'd been in a dispute with the juror's partner over the sale of an iPhone.
Petty much?
Petty.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the air embolism thing was based off of a paper that was published, I think, in 1989 by a Toronto neonatologist who has since come out and said, well, like, it's not possible that every air embolism in a neonate develops this, like, the rash on the abdomen that we had talked about, right? Where, like, they developed, like, a purpley splotchy rash across her abdomen.
Right.
So he'd come back out and said, well, I mean, not every case does that. So her defense was like, well, then it's not proof.
That's not how that works.
Right. That's not how any of this works. Do they not understand? Okay.
I mean, and with that, I'm like, well, then how do you explain the, like, streak of air that was in front of that kid's spine
Right.
when they did the x-ray? Like, where did that come from then? Magic. So yeah, so she appealed that in April. The judges that she appealed to withheld adjudication, and in May, they issued a 59-page ruling that refused her appeal. They said that the primary judge, Judge Goss, there we go, that his handling of the trial had been thoughtful, fair, comprehensive, and correct. They ruled that none of the 4 challenges were arguable and said that they did not consider that criteria for admission of fresh evidence regarding the air embolism had been met. So her defense is effectively she's exhausted all of her appeals process on her initial 14 whole life sentences. However, she still could submit her case to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, which is an official public body that's tasked with investigating potential miscarriages of justice. While they cannot overturn her convictions, they can refer her case back to a court of appeals if it identifies that new or overlooked evidence that may have changed the jury outcome. If it had been presented, it exists. So that is still a possibility, but for right now, her 14 whole life sentences are standing.
Good.
Then, because, we got to talk about, I just finished your most recent podcast update. We have to talk about M's most favorite form of murder, which is, of course, infanticide. She stood trial July 2nd for the attempted murder of baby K after a 3-week trial with a unanimous verdict after 3.5 hours of deliberation. She was found guilty.
Good.
So, one more, her 15th whole life sentence. And she was present this time for her sentencing, which, if you remember, she had not shown up for her sentencing for the first 14.
Right.
So during that, the judge said, you have wholly denied responsibility. It's the same judge, mind you, for this case in her first 14. You've wholly denied responsibility. You've shown no remorse, and there are no mitigating factors. And as she stepped down from the sentencing dock, she turned to the judge and said, but I'm innocent.
But you're not.
Right.
And what's really nice is, so now that all of the cases are final, the media blackout regarding everything has sort of gone away, because there was a large media blackout while the cases were ongoing to try and keep the jurors from being biased and making up their mind, essentially. So I have a ton more information about Child K's case than I did for the first 14 of them.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more out there now. So Child K was born premature at 25 weeks of gestation and 692 grams, or 1.52 freedom units.
That's a tiny.
Yes.
That's like almost palm sized.
Yes.
Oh.
She was intubated shortly after birth and was on monitoring. About 90 minutes after her birth and shortly after her primary nurse had left the child's bedside on the night of February 17, 2016, senior Dr. Ravi Jayaram, who, if you remember from the first trial, was one of the ones who was like, listen, I had all these concerns about her, but nothing had ever been heard. He entered the room at 3:45 a.m. to find that the breathing tube had become dislodged. The alarms that should have been going off were silenced, and Letby was standing at the bedside, quote unquote, doing nothing as the baby struggled.
Which is all kinds of red flags. Like, why you are supposed to be helping this child? Why are you just standing by doing nothing?
Yep. And then on 2 further occasions that night, prosecution told the jury that Letby interfered with the breathing tube after being caught virtually red-handed the first time to give the impression that there was something wrong with the baby. Baby K died in a different hospital 3 days later, and Letby was originally charged with her murder. However, prosecutors had decided there was insufficient evidence for that charge. So that's why she got the attempted murder charge.
Nope. I was going to say what I was going to say. I'm not going to say it because that almost made me puke. So we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. Letby's defense attorney countered that the baby had been born extremely premature and was fragile and unable to breathe on her own, and that the allegation relied on evidence from JRM, and that he was not truthful or accurate, and there was no safe basis to convict his client.
You good?
The neighbors, they like to blast their music when they run their pimp rider down the street.
Yeah.
Apologize.
Sounds good. Letby told jurors that she did nothing to harm the baby and that she was not guilty of what she was found guilty. Letby said in court that it was hospital policy to wait and see if a baby self-corrects rather than intervening in these situations. But a different, like a outside nursing advisory consultant, Elizabeth Morgan, when asked on the stand if that would be normal nursing policy, said that it was not a normal nursing policy. And Letby retorted with, "That's just her opinion. And I can't say if it's right or wrong. I just know what the policy was in Chester." When questioned by Prosecutor Johnson if a policy like that would apply to infants born as premature as baby K, Letby replied, "For any baby, there isn't a policy, but from my experience at working at Liverpool Women's Hospital and the Countess of Chester, you would not immediately put your hands in the incubator and start doing something because the baby would often self-correct quite quickly." So is there a policy or isn't there a policy? You're saying there's a policy, but then you're like, oh, but it's not a policy. Make up your mind. Keep your lies straight.
It's an unwritten policy, but either way, things need to be clear.
Like, keep your lies straight. That's all I'm asking.
Right.
It's just the deputy ward manager during this time agreed that a nurse could wait to see if a baby self-corrects when desaturates, paying attention to the skin color and other vital signs. But if the situation does not resolve, then an intervention is necessary. Keep in mind that this baby was desaturating. The alarms were silenced, and she was doing nothing. And yeah, I mean, sometimes in the unit, like if you watch a kid, you're like, give them a minute, but we don't actually give them like a whole minute. It's like, what are you doing?
Like 30 seconds or something?
Yeah, well, if any other vital signs change, then we intervene, right? Or if a kid is like, doesn't stop desaturating, then we do something. We don't just sit around with our hands behind our head and silence the alarms and wait for it to... No, you don't do that.
No.
But also, like, they were desaturating quickly. And in that sort of situation, like, you just go ahead and step in.
Yeah. So baby K was started on a morphine infusion around 4, and a chest x-ray around 6 showed the breathing tube in a correct position. Lost my place. Baby K desaturated 15 minutes later, as prosecutors suggest. Letby went back in the room to retrieve her notes post-delivery, like after the kid had been admitted to the unit, to like type up her notes on the admission. After being stabilized for the 3rd and final time, the chest x-ray showed the ET tube had moved a 5th of the way in from where a doctor had placed it. So we went from being in good position to not. Letby denied having moved the tube and reportedly tried to convince her colleagues that the baby had dislodged it all by herself.
Not a 5th. Like, not... I mean, I would understand, like, maybe, like, moving the tube maybe a 1/4 or an 1/8, but not, like, a substantially that amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The math ain't mathin'.
No, the math is not mathin'.
I like your octopus. It alleviates the situation.
The does. Letby then, at the beginning of this trial, said that her only memory of the child was that she was extremely premature. However, Facebook records show that Letby searched for the family's surname 2 years after the child had left her unit and 10 weeks before her first police interview in 2018. When asked about this, Letby had no explanation as to why she would have done it. But I don't remember this baby at all.
I detect lies.
Right.
And then the story just gets very interesting because, so during her trial, Letby denied being in the nursery despite having admitted to the police, admitting to it during police questioning. Then she agreed on several different lines of questioning as having been in baby's case room throughout the night. So at first she was like, no, I was never in that nursery. But then they kept asking her questions, and it was like, oh yeah, no, I went in for this, and oh yeah, no, I went in for this, and it's like,
which is it?
Which is it?
Right.
Keep your lies straight. I don't know. She insisted that baby K had not been intubated properly, and there were issues with the size of the ET tube, and that baby K received suboptimal care because nursing staff were not experienced with dealing with infants at that gestational age, which is true. The unit was not designed to admit a baby born of 25 weeks prematurity. And the tube that she was initially intubated with was a half size smaller than it would have been, because the first time they tried to intubate, the breathing tube didn't pass the vocal cords. They went with a size smaller, which is a standard procedure. It's just what we like.
Yeah.
First time you're like, no, that doesn't fit. You go for the size smaller. It's a thing. Occasionally, tubes will slip out if it's like a very active mobile kid and the tube is too small. 25 weekers don't really do much.
No.
They're not supposed to be doing much.
They just lay there.
You just kind of lay there.
I mean, at most they'll move digits or toes, but I mean, like, they don't really
move around.
No.
Or anything.
No. Not especially not right after birth. Like and that's
right.
That's the reason why most NICUs don't even use sedation, because the babies they're dealing with are so small that they're not at risk for losing their own breathing tubes.
And also trying to try to figure out the micro dosage for a child that small is terrifying.
Right.
Yep. Baby K's primary nurse on the stand stated that she would have checked the ET tube that was in position at 3:30 before she left to go update the family. And she left telling Dr. J-Ram that Letby would be babysitting. J-Ram reports having gotten up about 3 minutes later to go check on the baby. And he said when he was being questioned on the stand, he's like, I just felt like I needed to go do something. I needed to go check on the baby. Something, he's like, and I tried to tell myself, you just need to get on with your work. Like, you need to call the transport. You need to do all these things. And he's like, but something told me that I needed to go check on this baby. And he got up.
I still find it shocking that nobody... Anyways.
Yeah. So he gets up, he gets in the room, and he found
her standing over.
He found her standing next to the incubator with the baby satting in the 80s and continuing to drop with poor chest rise, and the ventilator was still working. The primary nurse had returned back to the NICU by 3:47 based on badge scans, and upon her arrival to the unit, found alarms going off and resuscitation efforts were ongoing. She was reintubated at that point with a larger tube, so like a normal size tube for her size, and was ventilated without issue. She had the other desaturation at 6:15. After a chest x-ray was obtained with the tube in good position, she was bagged and then ultimately reintubated again. And at about 7:25 during day shift huddle, Letby called for help from baby K's room, where she was found to be bagging the baby, at which point the tube was found to have been moved and was replaced.
I have questions.
Yeah, I might have answers.
Why? There's a certain level of stupid I think somebody has to be in order to think that this is undeniably okay. Why? I mean, like, they just replaced the tube, so why would they replace it again?
So I think they were worried. So with the first one, like when he walked in and found her desaturating, we look at it. We have a mnemonic for like vent issues. And one of them is DOPE is the biggest one, which is displacement obstruction. I think it's, I always forget the P. Displacement obstruction. I think it's pulmonary embolism. Oh, let me look.
It might
And
be
then-
the same for CCU. It's pulmonary embolism, right?
So you're looking at displacement, obstruction of the endotracheal tube, pneumothorax, or ventilator and equipment failure. That's your first 4 things you look at. We're all trying to look at them within like seconds to try and figure out like what is wrong. The first thing you do, you look at the vent. Is the vent still working? Vent's still working. Okay, great. Moving on. Is the tube dislodged or obstructed? You can try suctioning. And if that doesn't work, then you move on to like, is it displacement or pneumothorax? And both of those things require a chest X-ray or like visualization of the breathing tube, and you can tell there's usually markings on it that tell you how deep it is.
Right.
And he was there when the tube got put in the first time, so he knew where the tube should be.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he assumed that the tube had been displaced, pulled it out, and we intubated the baby.
And when you pull it out, you automatically have to get a new tube.
Right. And so that's why they put the size. It was the larger size. It was the size that should have been would have been appropriate for her age.
Yeah.
And then with the second one, the tube was in good position. She was bagged and intubated again. I don't know why they chose to pull the tube at that point and retube her again, but removing or replacing a tube is like it's a pretty common thing to do when you're like, I don't know why this kid is acting this way.
Right.
And then
it's one of the few things they can control.
Right, particularly since the chest X-ray showed that the tube was in a good position, you have to assume that the tube was obstructed.
Yeah, and that you just can't suction it out, so pull it out, stick it in a new one, go.
Yeah. And then for the third time, the tube had been moved, so they pulled it out and replaced it.
Yeah.
That's why we did it 3 times.
And all 3 times, it was Letby that was causing these issues.
Yeah. And then, so BBC reporters Judith Moritz and Jonathan Coffey, who covered the first trial, were there for the second trial. They said they watched her closely during her retrial, stating that she was readier to catch their eye and often looked up in the public gallery and was glancing across where baby Kay's family was sitting. She often blinked rapidly and clutched a furry stress toy under the desk of the witness box and spoke in the same neutral clipped tone as before, betraying little emotion.
So she was clutching her form of pearls, since it was a stuffed animal instead.
I mean, yeah, being on the stand, being caught for murder is stressful, I suppose. I don't actually.
I mean, even committing murder is stressful, but I mean, she's still on there, and she's still going, but I didn't do it.
I'm innocent.
Dr. Nigel Scon, medical director of the Countess of Chester Hospital NHS Foundation Trust, said, "Our thoughts are with the family and loved ones of baby Kay. We are extremely sorry that these awful crimes happened at our hospital." I was like, I bet you are.
Yeah. Because you're losing shit.
Dr. Dewey Evans. Anyway,
Dr. Louis Evans.
Just trying to figure out if we need to take a break. Dr. Dewey Evans, who was lead prosecution witness during the initial trial and gave testimony on 17 separate occasions over the 10-month trial, told the Daily Mail in an interview, "One thing we can be reasonably sure of is that Lucy Letby did not turn up to work one day and decide to inject a baby with air into their bloodstream. I think that modus operandi evolved over time, and I think that prior to the air embolus tube dislodgement was probably something that she did."
But I do think she decided one day to just insert air into and create an air embolism. Like she just woke up and was like, "Let's see what shit I can do today."
Well, I think it evolved over time, and I'll get to that point here in a second. But I think that like she, again, I don't think she just woke up one day and walked in the unit and was like, "I'm going to shoot this kid full of air." I think she got addicted to the rush of chaos that happened, and then just sort of devolved from there.
But then at like some point she did wake up and go, "I'm gonna do this today."
With all the criminal cases now completed, police are reviewing her entire medical career, including her time at both the Countess of Chester Hospital and the Liverpool Women's Hospital, where she worked for 6 months between 2012 and 2015, to include 4,000 admissions of babies during her tenure. One of the initial...
they should be looking at her whole entire career, because...
Her whole career.
She started somewhere.
Once the initial phase has been completed, Operation Hummingbird team, the Operation Hummingbird team will decide how many cases to examine in a microscopic detail. The Cheshire Constabulary has launched this investigation has also launched an investigation into possible corporate manslaughter and is examining the decision-making of senior leadership at the time of the deaths.
Okay.
Some parents have already come forward themselves with their own suspicions or been contacted by detectives. The number already assigned a specialist family liaison officer who will help guide families through the complexities of the investigative process that may take years to reach a point where Letby can face a third trial. In the meantime, senior detectives are expected to interview Letby in prison to see if she's ready to confess to other crimes against infants in her care, but it is possible that her crimes are so numerous that she may not recall how many she committed and when.
I don't like that at all.
No. And almost 20 families are seeking compensation via civil courts, asking for explanations and answers, and many of these cases were filed against the hospital before she was ever charged. Some experts are calling for ongoing financial compensation to families whose children suffered lasting brain injuries.
As they should.
As they should. So the Operation Hummingbird will look at her entire career at Countess of Chester Hospital, starting in 2012, when she first began working there after finishing her degree, as well as the 6 months at Liverpool Women's. Detective Superintendent Paul Hughes, the senior investigating officer, said at the time of Letby's original conviction, we are committed to a thorough investigation across the entire footprint of Lucy Letby's career while she was employed at Countess of Chester Hospital and on placement at Liverpool Women's. We are not looking at deaths at Liverpool Women's. We are looking at overall time. Obviously, there's a lot of years to go through and a massive amount of medical records, so it would be unfair to speculate on that at the moment. We are looking at a greater period of time. Detective Hughes also stated that in the cases identified so far, families have been contacted and are being supported. Detective Chief Nicola Evans, the deputy SIO, said the parents wishing to express concerns about the early days of their newborns, will speak to an investigator on this inquiry, and hopefully that means that they will receive some answers pretty quickly.
I mean, if they had originally taken this seriously in the beginning, it would never have gotten to this point. It's the fact that they didn't, and it got this far.
Here's where it gets sticky.
I don't like it.
Yeah, nobody likes this part.
Great. I already hate it.
Yep. Many online are championing for her innocence in blog posts, podcasts, websites, and videos, and calling for her to be freed.
Hold on! What the fuck did I just miss? Wait a minute, let's stop, pause, rewind, let's go back. Dad called. You know how he is. What in the flagrant fuck was that?
Okay, so to recap, Operation Hummingbird is looking at her entire career at both the Countess of Chester Hospital,
Good.
As well as her 6 months at Liverpool Women's. They are looking at upwards of 4,000 admissions of babies during her tenure.
I'm sorry. How many babies?
4,000. 430.
No.
Too fucking many.
Too fucking many.
Too many.
Too many.
Anyway, they're not right now looking at deaths. They're just like looking through all of the medical records, which obviously like they've got 3 years to go back and look at, and 4,000 medical records to get through.
They're not going to be doing fucking anything for the next 3 years.
They're not going to be doing anything for a very long time. Yes. But the detectives on the case are committed, as I said, to a thorough investigation across the time of her entire footprint of her career between the two hospitals. So they're on it. They're working on it. There may be
Still
more
hate
cases
it.
to be charged later. But yeah, so then you came back in. Many online are championing her innocence in blog posts, podcasts, websites, and videos, and calling for her to be freed. They've been at the trials. They've been protesting. They've written to the freaking government.
Are they addled?
Apparently.
It sounds like they're addled. They're thick.
So the third wall inquiry, which is the inquiry that has been championed into how it's a very broad inquiry, but basically it's looking into how she was allowed to kill for so long, what could have been done to stop this, and how they can prevent this from happening in the future. So it's a multi-pronged inquiry that's looking across the board, across the NHS, into like how this happened, how do we prevent it from happening again, and who was responsible for allowing her to continue to kill for as long. So
the upper management.
Well, yes. That started
obviously
last
not
week.
the people she worked with, because they were trying to stop her.
That started last week. And so I've got some updates from that. It's going on this week as well. They're going to hear from the families of the babies who were injured or murdered.
The families get to speak?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So glad.
Good.
And then from there, I think they're moving on into like, because it was like lots of opening comments and like sort of like with any other court case, like the opening comments from the teams
opening
about like
statements.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And sort of laying out what their facts are going to be moving forward. So, but at the first hearing, the thorough inquiry, which is examining whether the hospital handled concerns raised by Letby's coworkers, barristers representing the parents of the babies spoke of the anguish of these campaigns the anguish these campaigns have caused. The modern age has brought a proliferation of conspiracy theories which sprout, spread, and fester on social media blogs and on websites, Peter Skelton, KC, said. Lucy Letby's crimes, in particular, continue to be the subject of such conspiracies, some of which are grossly offensive and distressing for the families of her victims. Lawyers argued for the public inquiry to be live-streamed and that was unsuccessful. They said it is well known that the case has generated considerable public interest and that conspiracy theories have grown around it. They are toxic, they are ill-informed, and they ultimately grow in the shadows. The more light we put on this inquiry, the less space there is for speculation and conspiracy.
I mean, they're not wrong.
Which is true. They're not wrong. Those who believe Letby to be innocent have been trying to get the inquiry postponed under the consideration of alternative, potentially complex causes for the deaths of the babies other than murder, and a group of statisticians and neonatologists in a letter to the UK government requesting postponement, stating, while we acknowledge the gravity of the convictions against Ms. Letby, our focus is on the broader implications for patient safety, healthcare management, and the potential for the miscarriages of justice in complex medical cases. Which is true. But also, the letter added, our goal is not to relitigate the Letby case, but to ensure that the inquiry is positioned to conduct the most thorough and beneficial investigation possible for the future of neonatal care in the UK. A senior solicitor with Switowski's solicitors has said that the facts and issues in this inquiry should also be a profound concern to every family who has used or will use NHS maternity, neonatal, or pediatric services, and to the wider public who need to have confidence in the patient's safety.
I think that they should be doing like a whole investigation into that hospital that she worked at in the first place. That was like, she did nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with her. If there was the hospital that I worked at, if there was a pen missing, they wouldn't let us leave. Be like, turn out your pockets. Let me see your pockets. They knew everything. So this is, They just need to be run by nuns. That's it. I'm confident that if it, no, hear me out. I'm confident if it
preferably nuns with feet.
Hey! Hey! Listen.
That's a story for another time.
I hate you. I don't hate you, but
I can't help sometimes.
The nuns did not have feet.
I listened to that episode of the podcast.
Before the rebranding.
So the first week of the thorough wall inquiry, day 1, so that was last Tuesday.
Okay.
The tenacious lobbying of senior consultants may have prevented her from attacking more babies, but significant opportunities to investigate her were missed. Duh.
Right.
You know that.
Right.
Day 2. Junior doctors referred to Letby as Nurse Death, and pediatricians thought Letby was the common denominator in increased baby deaths in neonatal wards. Nicholas de la Power, KC, said Letby had attempted to murder one of the babies during a hospital inspection at the Countess of Chester.
I mean,
yeah,
obviously.
So one of her attempts was during a hospital-wide inspection, because we are nothing if not dramatic.
I'm apparently very popular today. Just keep going. I'm listening with my other ear.
Day 3. Babies' breathing tubes were found to have been dislodged at an unusual rate during Letby's placements at Liverpool Women's. I was like, what hospital's that? Richard Baker, Casey, said, it occurred in less than 1% of a nurse's shifts, but there were recorded incidents of this on 40% of the shifts that Letby had worked. So nearly half of her shifts had a baby whose tube got displaced, which is bananas to me, because I've been working in the ICU for 7.5 years. I can count on one hand the number of displaced tubes that I have been witness to. On one hand.
And most of the times it's the child did it themselves, because you work with children that can move.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Baker then told the inquiry that people who doubt her guilt should be ashamed of themselves. There was an audit of incidents at Liverpool Women's that showed this statistic. So,
I'm sorry.
Based in facts.
Hold on. Just rewind just a skosh. If we think she's done it, we should be ashamed of ourselves?
No. Those who doubt her guilt should be ashamed of themselves.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, excuse the fuck out of me?
I was like, I'm sorry.
I ain't gonna be ashamed. I'm gonna preach this to the fucking, I almost
1,000% guilty, and I will stand by it.
This is a hill I will die on.
Right.
Call me Mount Everest, because this bitch ain't moving. Shit. Also, do I have, Magic 8-Ball tattooed on my forehead?
Why?
No.
Why do you think, Rachel? Why do I always call myself a Magic 8-Ball?
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Anyway. Yeah, I read that, and I was like, I can count on one hand the number of times I have been present for a displaced or dislodged breathing tube. And nearly half of her shifts. So that harks back to the guy that testified at her initial trial, who was like, I don't think she woke up one day and was like, I think I'm just going to inject this baby with air. He thinks that she was like, let's play with the breathing tube and see what happens. And then got addicted to the rush of all of the attention that happened when the baby was decompensating, and realized that she might be able to do it in other ways. Because, you're always around when a tube gets dislodged. It looks a little suspicious. A little weird if you're always going on shift and the tube goes missing.
It sounds vaguely familiar to another nurse that I covered. Did she read anything about Jane Toppin?
She might have, but I can't prove that.
I was gonna say it sounded oddly familiar to something that we've already covered this month.
Right?
I was like, it sounds.
I was like, this seems oddly familiar.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm getting to something really fun there.
Oh, no.
This is not. Hold on, take that back, Sylvia. This is not fun. This is children are no. The big. Shut up.
No.
Well, day 4.
Okay.
NHS managers say they were truly sorry for the delay in contacting police and NHS England, and said it could have done more to scrutinize the hospital during the time it first became aware of the rise of neonatal mortality figures and when the police became involved.
I think that that quote from The Craft, "Oh, he's sorry. He's sorry. He's sorry. He's sorry. He's sorry. He's sorry," comes into play, and I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to.
That was a bad idea.
That was a very bad idea. It's like shaken Catherine syndrome over here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought. I was like, oh, they're sorry. Well, they're sorry that babies died.
Yeah.
But
I bet you fucking are. Bet you fucking are.
God damn.
There were failures. So this is like things that were found and presented at the first day 4. Failures by the Countess of Chester's Hospital's chief nurse, Alison Kelly, to warn the Nursing and Midwifery Council of the seriousness of concerns about Letby were also discussed. The NMC's barrister, Samantha Jones, said initially in July of 2016, Chief Nurse Kelly told the NMC there was not sufficient evidence to initiate a referral of Letby. Mrs. Jones said Alison Kelly first told the NMC of concerns regarding a rise in neonatal mortality rates and concerns that Letby may present a serious risk to public safety, but we were told that there was no evidence available in that time to support those concerns.
What?
I call bullshit.
Right?
I call 100% bullshit.
I smell bullshit.
Yep. Ms. Jones also said the NMC had failed to put an interim order sanction against Letby after her arrest. Alison Kelly is currently facing a fitness to practice investigation on her own account.
There's a certain special level of hell for these people.
Yep. In its opening statement, the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, which was responsible for a key report used by managers to exonerate Letby, addressed mistakes it had made at the time, as the inquiry was told about the 2 versions of the review report, the confidential one that referenced allegations against Letby and one that families received which had these allegations removed. The Royal College apologized for not sharing the unredacted report with pediatricians and said it should have recommended calling the police as well as other regulators. Because if you remember, they asked the Royal College of Pediatrics to weigh in, and they reviewed all the cases and were like, these are kind of suspicious. You might want to investigate. And the hospital was like, that's fine. That's fine. The inquiry will also be looking into whether the hospital's executive team were operating on the basis that concerns about Letby had to be proved before calling the police. If so, this set a far too high a threshold for police involvement and ignored the safeguarding obligations the hospital had. The first recorded mention of police involvement has so far been identified as June 29, 2016, and had not been acted upon for nearly a year.
That makes my head hurt.
Yep. Because remember, she got pulled off of the ward and placed in a data and safety something, like an office, like a clinic.
Right.
Like an office role, right?
Right.
And then fought to get herself put back on the ward. And then before
she was innocent.
She was innocent. And then before that could happen, the police showed up. Because the physicians that she worked with voiced their concerns finally to somebody outside the hospital.
They were the squeaky wheel that finally ended up getting listened to.
That.
Yeah. So, some fascinating findings from the inquiry so far. And granted, this is all up to Friday.
So this is all the information that was not able to be released, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, because of the media blackout. There was actually, so speaking of the people who are championing for her innocence, there was a 36,000 word New York Times journal article that was published that got blacked out in the UK because of the ongoing trial for her.
Oh, shit.
And there were several people in the UK government, the Tories, who thought that it should be allowed to be read by the public.
Oh.
And had to be reminded that a fair and judicial trial was allowed to everybody, and that if the jury was tampered with, it wouldn't be a fair trial.
I mean, they have a fair point there. However, she's guilty as fuck.
You know, the problems in politics reaches across the pond. So some fascinating findings from the inquiry so far. And again, this is up till Friday because I don't have anything from today. The chairman of the hospital where Letby committed her crimes was involved. Where her crimes were involved. Wait, that is a terribly written sentence. What was I doing? It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Forgive me. The chairman of the hospital where Letby committed her crimes, he was chief executive of the NHS during another nurse's spree of child murders in 91, when Beverly Alit killed 4 children and harmed another 9 at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital in Lincolnshire. He was responsible for distributing those findings of the inquiry in her attacks to all health trusts in the UK.
So there was another?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the UK's had several killer nurses.
I mean,
just the most recent.
Right. I mean, we covered quite a bit of them. Thank you, Rachel. But it
not welcome.
Yeah.
I hate
they've
people.
had several. But yeah, so, the chairman of the hospital, who was chairman of the hospital while she was committing her crimes, was the chief executive of the NHS during another child murderer's, spree in 91. And he was the one responsible for distributing the findings of that inquiry to Alit's attacks to all health trusts in the UK. He should have known better.
He should have.
Yeah.
He should have known better. You were responsible for distributing that information. You took over as chairman of a hospital and fucking let it happen again. A fellow nurse, known only as Nurse T, reached out to Letby expressing worry about the deaths of the 3 babies the inquiry has found. Nurse T specified that she was not suspicious, but believed the situation was quote-unquote unusual and unexplained, to which Letby responded, "Odd that we lost 3 and in different circumstances? ? Nurse T responded, "Were they that different? Ignore me, I'm just speculating."
If I had a nickel for every time this happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which is very unusual that it's happened twice.
Not a lot of money, but very unusual it's happened twice. Yeah. And when asked about the messages, Nurse T explained, "When I said there was something odd about that night, and then the other 3 went so suddenly, I was referring to the night of June 9th through the 10th, 2015, when child B collapsed, as well as the deaths of childs A, C, and D. I didn't mean I had suspicions, just that the situation was unusual and unexplained. There was something not sitting comfortably with me. I just couldn't work out what was going on. I wasn't speculating there was anything sinister at play."
I understand with the royals, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Hear me out, okay? All right? I am sorry to my Brits that are listening. I have 4 friends over in England that are listening. This has nothing to do with you beautiful, beautiful broken pieces. This has to do with England as a whole, because apparently they're twats. All of them. Because
they've gotten a lot of fresh blood into.
I hope so. Because right
House
now,
of Commons and the House of Lords, thankfully.
Because right now it's not just scraping the bottom of the barrel. Now they're out of options.
I mean, think about it. They did several decades of inbreeding. So I mean, they bad things were going to happen.
Well, right, but I mean, the fact that she's a nurse, she's supposed to be smart. I have met plenty
supposed to be the key word.
Supposed to be in the keyword. I have worked with plenty of nurses, and I'm smart. My IQ is pretty high. I got it tested because, tism. But standing next to some of these nurses, I was dumb. I was seriously Jesus. But these nurses from across the pond are making me feel like I'm Albert fucking Einstein.
I will say that, we joke, right? In dark, if we was in for dark humor, we'd have no humor at all.
This is true.
we joke all, it's a thing. You joke about, right? Like you call a coworker who happens to be on every time a kid dies, or you must be the angel of death. But I would never actually
Say it.
assume that
Right.
my coworker was
Is actually
murdering
an angel of
children.
death.
Right.
You wouldn't say it with your whole chest.
Just part of it.
Just part of it.
No, I mean, we joke, right? Like there are people who just always seem to be on, like they're the black cloud. They're the ones who always seem to just attract it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we joke. Oh, you're an angel of death. Oh, ha ha ha! You must be the Grim Reaper. Like it's a thing. It's just a thing. We joke about it.
Yeah.
However, we joke about it in the same sense of, oh, you're a black cloud. You're always on when something bad happens, right? The unit blows up, or like we get 16 admissions in a night, or like you joke about it. But I would never, having now
Totally
known
assume.
having worked with several people who always happen to be on when a kid comes in either coding and dies, or when a kid who we expected to passes on their shift. Like, I would never be like, oh, they must be murdering babies. So like, I can see where she's coming from. Like, she was like, oh yeah, it's just very weird that this has happened so fast. Like, there's been so many deaths in so many days.
But after
like,
a while,
but not
you
like
start
putting.
wondering.
You're just not quite connecting the dots there,
Yeah.
right?
I don't think you can connect the dots with using light bright, because all the bulbs are burnt out.
Fair.
Now, during Letby's nursing training, she was taught about Beverly Elliott.
I'm done. I'm going home.
I'm done with this field trip, Ma. Pick me up.
Mom!
Yeah. The inquiry will hear from a senior lecturer at the child nursing program at the University of Chester, where Letby graduated in 2011, who claims that Litt's case formed a part of student nursing and learning. Now, I could be wrong, and if you guys have any more other healthcare people listening, like, I don't remember studying killer nurses or doctors in my training.
For medical assisting, we did study killer doctors, nurses, and assistants.
Yeah, like I think we might have touched on it briefly as like an angel of death type like chapter, but like it didn't go into specific people.
Right. It wasn't for mine it wasn't like super in depth. It was like here's what not to do kind of thing. Or here are things to look out for if it's a little sus. You got to watch out for these specific things. But not actual cases unless they wanted to review them, I guess. Like look up those specific. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I got you. But again, I don't think we might have touched on it like as a brief little snippet in our
schooling
like, overview. Yeah, but it wasn't like we didn't study anybody specifically.
Okay.
In like oh, this is a thing that happens. Like it was honestly, it was probably in psychology. It was probably a psychology class where we touched on it briefly. Like this is a thing that happens because people get a thrill from the attention that happens when this goes down. A biochemist spotted the evidence of the insulin poisoning of baby F and notified doctors. However, a Dr. Z.A., who's been granted anonymity, told the inquiry she considered it absurd and ridiculously unlikely that the insulin had been administered deliberately and assumed the result was wrong. Dr. John Gibbs, another consultant, admitted that it was highly regrettable that the results were interpreted incorrectly.
What are the odds that they're both wrong?
I mean, I think Dr. Z.A. has some questioning of her own intuition there to do because, like, I mean, this could have been stopped after baby F.
Right. There was enough.
It could have been like it could have been escalated enough to have stopped after baby F, but because someone decided that the biochemist results were wrong, she was continued to allow on and to do it again, right? Because remember, she did it again.
Mm-hmm.
She used the same MO to kill another baby. Like, so, Letby was allowed to visit the ward during the period where she was pulled off of her shifts. And she was found to have been liaisoning with a colleague at Alder Hay Children's Hospital to view the theater lists and to start having an observational contract.
Okay.
She's just gonna move right on along. Somewhere else. Right on killing.
As Professor McGonagall would say, there are several things I would like to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so some things that have come out after the trials now, of course, since the media blackout has ended.
Right.
Those post-it notes that she wrote, the ones that like were just written over on, like, you guys remember seeing them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Were allegedly written on the advice of the head of occupational health and well-being at Countess of Chester's Hospital, as well as her GP, as a way of dealing with extreme stress, according to sources close to the case. As like a therapeutic process in which she was advised to write down her troubling thoughts and feelings. Rachel, you're muted.
Sorry.
I can see your mouth moving, and I was like, oh, she's got thoughts.
I mean, or she could have just gone and played with puppies and kittens instead. Like,
right.
Go touch some grass, bitch.
Touch some motherfucking grass.
I just like it's interesting to me, right? Because so the head of occupational health and well-being at the Countess of Chester's Hospital is not a psychiatrist, right? Like people need to understand that HR is not your friend, and the employee assistance people are not your friend.
No,
they're there to cover the CEO's asses.
If you're truly dealing with extreme stress, like especially my healthcare workers, my first responders, if you are dealing with extreme stress and you are feeling the effects of that, please seek out outside therapy.
Yeah.
Please. Seek outside therapy, seek outside help. It's okay to do that. There's this overwhelming sense of we just don't talk about things. I'm telling you, just go see an actual therapist.
There's
chances are good that your insurance will cover it. If they don't, they might cover some of it. There's low cost options available, but do not trust that your employee assistance people are there to help you.
I mean,
go see somebody outside of it.
Even if you don't want to, for instance, at the old hospital I used to work at, HR didn't give a shit. They went bankrupt, by the way, so I can talk as much crap about them as I want. But it was a thing where nobody talked about their feelings there. It wasn't a thing. So we did group, kind of like AA meetings where we would meet up, and we would never tell HR where we were going,
and just decompress together.
We would decompress together, and it was our safety spot, and whatever we said there, it's kind of like AA. Whatever you say here stays here, and I mean, there are definitely spots like that still available. I know, at least in California. I don't know, anywhere else, but I mean, that's a thought too.
Yeah. And again, the fact that these post-it notes were allegedly written means that the head of occupational health hasn't come out and verified this. Why? Because they're not your friend. They're not your friend, right? If this was legitimate mental health advice, then there needs to be documentation of that.
Right.
Instead, she wrote on those notes that she was not good enough. Why me? I haven't done anything wrong. Police investigation, slander, discrimination, victimization. And these notes were allegedly written after some of her colleagues had started suspecting her, and also referenced her family and pets, colleagues at work, and describes repeated suicidal thoughts. Kill myself right now. Help. Despair. Panic. Fear. Lost. I feel very alone and scared. And these notes were written sometime between July 2016, after her removal from the ward, and her arrest in July 2018. if you are truly feeling those thoughts, please seek actual help.
Yep.
Not your GP, not your HR people. Seek actual help.
There are also hotlines you can call to talk to people.
I was just looking up the number.
Don't ask me. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I only have the poison control one memorized.
So I know the suicide and crisis hotline is 988.
Mm-hmm.
So you can text it. You can call it. Yep. I don't know what the international one is though.
Oh, the UK just did one. I think it was last year where you can text.
Yeah. And after a certain amount of time, if it gets to a point, they send emergency services to wherever your location is. Which I do appreciate the UK for that. But it's also 988lifeline.org. Let's see here. They also have interpreters for people who are mute or hard of hearing.
It's available in English and Spanish, and available 24 hours a day.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
365 days a year.
Because again, I part of this, I wonder, like, some of the things that were present in her room seemed very childlike, almost like she'd gotten stuck in a age of not quite invalidization, but like she just got stuck.
Regression? Do you think it was okay?
I don't think it was regression. I think she, like, in development, like, psychologically just got stuck in a period where, like, because you've got the id, ego, super ego. I think she got stuck in id, right? Where, like, she needed it to be about her, and so she got addicted to the rush of having people come in the room because something was happening to the baby, and it's very Munchausen-ish, almost in a way, but like she just got the thrill of, like, being connected to the child that was dying, and, like, knowing that she'd caused that, and, like, well, but all these people were around me, and, like, she was getting, like, sympathy texts, right? Because she you get the sympathy text. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened on your shift, and, like, and so it's like, I almost wonder, like, if she'd gotten, like, if those thoughts were present, right, because of everything that was going down, if she had gotten actual mental help years before, maybe this could have been prevented.
Probably, more than likely. I mean,
like, if somebody had recognized or helped her work through these feelings in a safe space that didn't include killing babies, maybe she would have been better off. Maybe we wouldn't even be talking about her. But that's my plug. If you are feeling left alone and scared, there is help available. Please seek it out.
And they don't take names either. If you don't want to give a name, they just say, let's call you something else. What's a good name that I can call you?
So back to, like, interesting news that have come out since the trials were all done. The start of her first trial, the jury was shown a chart listing on one axis 25 suspicious deaths and collapses between June of 2015 and June of 2016, and on the other, the names of 38 nurses who worked on the unit. Letby had an unbroken row of crosses beside her name, putting her at every scene for every death and collapse. 38. The nurse present with the second highest number of collapses had 7. Statisticians have called this chart into question, as the table did not include 6 other deaths during that period for which Letby was not charged. The table, however, only included cases that were deemed suspicious by expert witnesses engaged by the police to look at the case, who were not aware at the time that Letby was a suspect. And Letby has changed her legal team within the last month, with her new barrister, Mark McDonald, telling BBC's File on 4 that they are planning a new appeal, taking her case to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. McDonald is also representing Benjamin Green, a nurse who was also jailed for life in 2006 for murdering 2 of his patients and poisoning 15 others. Green's application to appeal his convictions Whiston died in 2009, and the CCRC then denied 2 applications in 2013 and 2015 to send his case back to the Court of Appeal. Original barrister Ben Myers will stay on to appeal her conviction of Baby K's attempted murder.
I believe the word you're looking for, Rachel, is fuck.
Pretty much.
Because just the look on your face is just... You smell something
I
funky.
hate it here, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
Too damn bad!
I can't.
So it will be like, it will be very interesting to see what happens with this inquiry, because I think that there's a lot, not just like, okay, so let's say, just say that even if she is innocent, this inquiry is necessary because the number of neonatal deaths that happened on this unit in a year
It's
was
too
excessive.
fucking many.
It was excessive, especially considering that, like, before and after that, the numbers were so much lower. Like, something needs to be done to figure out why that happened. Was it a staffing issue? Was it an infection issue? Like, something needs to be figured out as to why so many babies died or were seriously injured on that unit. Mr. Fluffies! When she was there for that year. Like, so if she is innocent, let's just throw it out and say, well, even if she's innocent, I don't think she is, this inquiry is necessary because there was something seriously wrong on this unit and it got swept under the rug.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody paid attention. It didn't get escalated to leadership. It just got ignored. Right? And so, and I'm not usually one for like micromanagers in the hospital, but somebody should be paying attention to this and trying to figure out like why it happened and how to prevent it from happening again, because nobody's ever going to have trust in the maternity or the neonatal wards if something doesn't come out of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't trust, like, because it's also like, if the nurses don't feel like they can trust their management with their concerns, then the good nurses are going to leave. Right? And they're going to go find somewhere else to work where they feel confident in their management to listen to their complaints and their concerns and to initiate changes that are going to make care for patients better. Like,
yeah,
people were bringing complaints forward and it was just getting ignored. And it's like, well, how many other complaints on different things do you ignore if this is what you're ignoring?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So even if she was innocent, this inquiry was necessary to figure out why that many babies were injured or murdered or killed injured and died on that unit in a year.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what the inquiry finds. But I'll be watching it. Getting little updates. But yeah, so now that the media blackout is over, if anybody wants to go through and read the court transcripts, the Chester Standard, which is the local newspaper, which is where I got most of this information from, has all of the court transcripts on their free online. You can look at Chester Standard, Lucy Letby, and it'll pull it all up for you. You can read through the entire court transcripts.
We love free online stuff.
We love free online stuff. We love free stuff.
I will say their website's a little junky to load on the phone. It's much better on like an actual computer.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there. But yeah, if you want to go through and read all of the transcripts and decide for yourself if you think she's innocent or guilty, but also please let the inquiry happen because it needs to be done. So.
And you'll definitely send me the link so when I post this in a couple of days, I can put it on there. Fabulous.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Well, that's everything I've got for Lucy.
Well,
thanks. I hated every second
I hated
of it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I finished Friday's episode today. I was driving back home from therapy, and I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about M's favorite kind of murder, infanticide.
Well, funny enough, she had a doctor's appointment today, so she couldn't make it. I did tell her. I did tell her we were talking about it. And she's like, "Aw, man." And I was like, "Sorry, man." Like,
but doctor's appointments are important.
They are.
Appointments are important.
They are. I have So, with that is our update for the terrible, horrible Lucy Letby.
The Nurse of Death.
The Nurse of Death. Thank you, Sylvia.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. What, I have her nickname wrong. So, Nurse Death. Like Dr.
Nurse
Death.
Death. Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Like,
that's better.
yeah, like Dr. Death. Nurse Death.
Well, I hope
she's definitely deathy.
I hate you.
Sorry, dark humor, guys.
She's Letby Deathy. All right. With that, stay feral, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
This episode was a Pandemonium Witches case exclusive update. Tune in every Friday for the scheduled chaos, and we'll see you all next time.